Hey everybody! Welcome to another video where I do whatever I want, and today I want to do a story time. I've never really sat down and done one, but I dug up the journal about the situation to refresh my memory because it was back in 2010. This was 7 years ago, well 6.5. It's multiple pages of this terrible missions trip that I went on. So, ready? Let's begin. Alright, so if you didn't know, I went to a private Christian college. I hated it. That's why I never talk about it. That's why I don't give it a shout out. I did not like that school. But in this school, in order to graduate, you had to do something called MOS credits. MOS credits were basically community service. So I decided to go on a missions trip. I took my Thanksgiving break to go down to Mexico to do a missions trip just to fill my MOS credits. I personally wasn't a huge fan of short missions trips just because I read so many articles and heard so many stories about how they did more harm than good, but I had to fill these freaking MOS credits. So I signed up for it. I asked to be on the construction team or the cleanup team because I was like, that'll be doing good. I'll be building something or I'll be cleaning something. And on the form it said, put anyone else you know that are going on these trips. And my freshman roommate, I was a sophomore at this time, my freshman roommate was also doing this trip. So I put her name down because I love her. Her name's Kau. Her name is the only name I'm actually gonna use in this story. I'm gonna switch everyone else's. A week later, I find out that they created a new section of the missions trip. They didn't know where to put us, so they made the children's ministry section. But I got put with Kau. We met our group about a week later. There were two leaders. The older leader, I will call him Mark. He did not go to the school. He had no affiliation with the school other than this. And he said he was a pastor and he also ran a day spa in Beverly Hills. Our other leader, we'll call her Betsy. She was a freshman. She was really nice. The rest of the people in the group, I'd never met them before, but everyone was super nice and we got along really well. And we started having these meetings once a week to talk about what we were gonna do in Mexico with these children. They weren't orphans, they were just kids that attended this church after school? I don't know. We were given like zero information. And all of us kind of didn't like Mark. He was the definition of extra. And he was sarcastic and rude, but not in the funny way. Sometimes I'm sarcastic, sometimes I'm a little rude, but in a humorous way. He was just the dick. So we met 4 times, once a week for a month, to plan this trip. And by the end of the month, I still had no idea what we were doing. I had no idea what was the plan once we got down to Mexico. I knew that there was a huge group from the school going. We were all sleeping at this campground outside this church in tents. I could not figure out what in the world the point of us going was. I was like, all right, are we supposed to preach the gospel to these children that are at this church? But we hadn't planned 0 services. And at one point in the meetings, I'm like, let's teach these kids about dental hygiene. And I was like, what are we doing? I didn't know. So that's the base of it. I liked everyone except this Mark guy. So then I started this journal on my journey down there. The first few pages is all about the car ride there. We're driving there and we're playing like 90s hits or whatever. And then Mark, who's driving, turns off the music. He's like, I have a phone call. He took a 2-hour phone call while we were all in the car and we weren't allowed to speak. If any of us said anything, he shushed us. I mean, that's just rude car etiquette, right? And then I realized it's 8 p.m. and he still hasn't turned his headlights on. Cars are honking at us and I keep trying to tell him, Mark, turn your headlights on, and he keeps telling me to shut up. Finally, he hangs up the call and realizes that he's lost. He hasn't been paying attention to the directions, he lost the caravan, and kept missing calls from other people, like the other cars in the caravan, being like, hey, we've lost you, hey, turn your lights on. I started driving, and he was like, I have a headache, I'm gonna lay down in the back. So he took up the whole back seat, so everyone had to squish in the front, the middle seat. He was like, we need to play Christian music so I can fall asleep. We're like, whatever. He fell asleep, and then a car full of college kids were like, let's put on Rihanna. I have it in here. We wanted to play Rihanna. We started playing Rihanna, and then he shot back up. He woke up from his nap and said, change it back. I don't want to hear any of this secular music anymore tonight. And he forced us to put on his Christian CD again. So his CD is playing, he falls back asleep. We wait till the CD ends, and then we just turn off the music and ride in silence. We were all dying. So finally we get to the camp. When you get to camp, there is like everyone that came from the school is all like hanging out at this like bonfire thing, you know, we're all there, we just had a car ride, we wanna relax. Everybody's groups are at this like bonfire thing. Except the leaders of my group. Oh no, Mark and Betsy decided all 10 of us need to cram in to a 6-person van because they wanted to How did I put it? I want to see how I put it. They wanted to talk about when we felt the Holy Spirit within us. That's what my group did. While everybody else was hanging out at the bonfire, my group had to go into a 6-person van and talk about how we felt the Holy Spirit within us. Now, this is what I wrote. So we sat in the van that was ridiculously hot and smelly for the longest time while both my legs decided to go to sleep. I am not a small human. I can't squish that well. So my roommate's name was Ka'u. She was Hawaiian. Her full name was Ka'u Oinui Nui Kiyomi Kuatsu. Mark wouldn't learn her name. He refused. He couldn't figure out how to say it. So he always called her Flower Girl. She hated it. She told him multiple times, please do not call me that. My name is Ka'u. And so he looked at her and said, all right, you first, Flower Girl. And I snapped and I said, her name is Ka'u. Learn to say it. And then of course I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble a lot on this trip because I had an attitude, but really I'm just not putting up with Mark's attitude the entire time. When it got to me, I said, I don't have one next because I wanted to get out of the van. I remember being like, how do I get out of this van quicker than normal? So I was just like, when they got to me, like, what's your Holy Spirit experience? And I don't have one next. They hated me, but I hated Mark. And then when it was time to set up camp, they wouldn't let Ka'u and I sleep in the same tent because they felt that we were too touchy-feely with each other. We touched each other too much. So they suspected that we might be lesbians together. But they put us both in tents of girls, so I don't know if they were so concerned about us being lesbians, why didn't they stick us in the tents with guys? I don't quite know. But anyway, so Ka'u and I had to be separated. It was super annoying. That didn't matter. The next day, we go to see these children at this church. I still have no clue what's going on. Don't know what we're supposed to say, don't know what's happening, so I'm hanging out with the kids. I played soccer with them. I think we played hide and seek. We had just like this dirt field that we just played on. And then Mark was like, okay guys, we have to do our Bible lesson. And Mark starts preaching. Now, on this trip, we had a translator who was a high schooler, call her Casey. So Casey was this senior at a high school who volunteered her time to come on this trip. She had no need or reason to be on this. She wasn't getting any credit for it. She wasn't getting paid. She volunteered to not attend Thanksgiving with her family and translate during this business trip because she was fluent in English and Spanish. She happened to be Mexican and she was very strong in her Mexican culture. So during this Bible lesson, I wrote what did he say? Then while we were telling the story of the Bible and saying how we should live our lives, Mark said that we should kiss everyone. And then Casey stopped him and said she wouldn't translate it because in that culture it was disrespectful to say that. Right when he said like we should kiss everyone, she turned to him, she goes, that's disrespectful in this culture. Can you rephrase it so I can translate it differently? And he snapped at her and said, you are just the translator. I am the pastor. You say what I say. Just screamed at her in front of everyone. And all of us in our group were like, and he has been so rude to her this entire time. I think he was racist against Mexicans. I'm just gonna say it. So he had been rude to her this entire time, telling her she didn't know things, blah, blah, blah. And when he snapped and said it to her, she just broke down crying and left the classroom because she was fed up. Because not only did he just disrespect her, he disrespected the whole culture and told her she didn't know anything about her own culture or Jesus, and told her to just translate. This girl, this high school girl who volunteered her time to come help out this douchebag, just got screamed at by this douchebag. So anyway, she leaves crying. Me and Ka'u see this and go to console her because me and Ka'u really liked her. She was a really nice human being. Also, when you see someone cry, you should probably go console them. So anyway, we go up to her and she's just, bawling, crying, whatever. Not whatever. Basically, Ka'u and I told her, we're here to be helpful to these children. We're here to just hang out with these kids, show a Christian lifestyle, I guess, was what we were supposed to do there. We told Casey that we'll put this to the side for now, and then when we get back to camp that night, we'd report it to the dean of the camp. Basically, like, report that this dude has been very disrespectful and rude to all of us this entire trip. And so she agreed. She's like, okay. So we all like took a deep breath, and then Betsy, the other leader, was like, can I have a moment alone with Casey? And we're like, whatever. And so Ka'u and I left, started playing with the kids again. Then Betsy comes back over to me and she goes, can you sit with Casey, but don't feed into the Mark sucks stuff? And I was like, okay, child, calm down. And I was like, yeah, I'll go be with my friend. So I went and hung out with Casey. So Betsy then goes over to Mark and tells her the girls have decided to stay calm and happy the rest of the day for the children, but when they get back to the camp, they will talk to the dean about your attitude and how you acted during this trip. Because Betsy was fed up with it too, but she was just trying to be like an authority figure and be like, everyone just remain calm, I don't have sides. But really, she was fed up with Mark because Mark sucked. Oh, and he did not like it. Oh, no, no, no. Mark did not like that we were gonna fake happy and nice for the children and then tattle on him when we got back. So Mark decides to come up to us and start screaming at us in front of all of the children that we're playing soccer with. We all agreed to just be there for the kids and hang out and have fun. And this douchebag decides, no, he wants to come over and start a fight. So he comes over and starts screaming at Casey. So I stepped in and I told him to shut up. I was done with it. He started screaming back at me, which you don't do because oh, by the way, Ka'u was the quarterback on my football team. We both worked out together. She might have more muscle than any other woman I've seen in my entire life, but she ain't bulky though. That's the thing. I don't know. She's just made of muscle. She has the same kind of attitude that I do, where you don't mess with the people we love. So she stepped in and told him not to speak to me that way. He said, hey, flower girl, shut up. So I was ready to deck the dude. This is the closest I've ever been to getting into a fist fight with another human being. Cause he is screaming at us that we're sinners, we're terrible role models, we're ruining this entire missions trip for everybody involved. He is a pastor, he knows God better than us, he is closer to Jesus, and we are filled with demons. He was screaming this at us. Ka'u might be one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. This girl is nothing but good. Mark, on the other hand, is not. Say what you want about me, don't say that stuff about Ka'u. And Ka'u is like, don't say that stuff about Rachel. So I start making a fist and I'm about to go in for a punch. I am not proud of this, but this dude had just the entire trip so rude, so disrespectful, just the worst one. I can truly say I hate him, which is, I shouldn't say, but I hate him. I make a fist, I'm about to go in for the punch. Ka'u sees me. As angry as she is at Mark, she's not gonna let me hit him because that wasn't the right thing to do. So Ka'u grabs my arm and pulls me back. So Mark sees this, realizes that I wanted to hit him. He gets this close to my face, starts chasing me, getting this close to my face and saying, I'll hit you. I don't care that you're a woman. I'm gonna beat the crap out of you. When he gets this close to my face, Ka'u stepped in and she just started going off on him. And he got so scared of her. She's shorter than me, by the way, but she is pure muscle. He ran. He ran. The second he saw that Ka'u wasn't holding me back anymore and then became the person that was gonna be the one to fight him, he ran. And as he was running, he said, what, are you guys in a relationship or something? So, still on the whole thinking that calling us lesbians will insult us thing, we didn't care. Remember, there are about 30 little children that don't speak English watching us because we're a group of good Christians trying to do good and show them how a Christian lifestyle should be. You remember that? While we're sitting there screaming at each other, trying to fight each other, then we have children looking at us to be role models. So we're all bawling, we're all crying just because we're so fed up with this dude. Every time he opens his mouth, he pisses us off. Everyone on that group was lovely, good humans. Like, I loved them. I had no problem with anybody in the group except him. All of us had that consensus that he's just a bad person. So we're all crying and we're all like, okay, when we get back, we're just gonna report him. We're done with him. We're done with him. And then Betsy comes back and she goes, everyone go find your separate spots and just think. So Mark had to come up to each of us and ask us why he hated us individually. And every time we tried to tell him, he'd cut us off and start spewing Bible verses at us and telling us that he is a better person, closer to God and a better Christian than us. So we were just fed up with it. We were done. We literally ignored him. Anytime Betsy or Mark tried to talk to us, the 8 of us, the rest of us, we were like, we're just gonna play with these children. So all we did was play with the children the rest of the time. So Casey was sent home. She had her parents come pick her up because Mark lied and was saying all this stuff about it, and they were just like, Casey has to go home. We were livid. And they took in this second translator, this grown woman, who came up to me, pulled me aside the next day and was like, so Mark says that you have some demons inside of you. I was done. This trip was terrible. Also, Mark ruined one of the vans, so we had to split up and go with other groups on the way home. The whole thing was a mess. And he kept being like, I have migraines, and like skipping out on things. There was one day when we went and did yard work, he had a migraine that entire day, so we had to sleep in the AC van. It was a missions trip from hell. We did no good, absolutely absolutely no good. I got to play with some kids, but we scarred them. We were having screaming matches and close to fist fights at this church. It was the worst thing ever. When we got home, we reported him, but obviously the school wasn't gonna do anything because the school sucked and they cared more about how people saw us from the outside than how things were actually running. And so if they had fired one of their pastors or missions leaders, they would look pretty bad. It was a mess. He ruined one of the vans. He also wouldn't own up to it because they came and they were like, there's oil leaking to one of your guys' vans, what happened? And Mark was like, I don't know. And all of us were like, he ran over a center divider. What? I got my Moss credits though, so goal achieved, but that's it. If you guys, I need to know if you guys like story times, my story times. If you do, like this video. If it gets to 15,000 likes, I'll do another one. I'll find something, because I do have a lot of journals. Anyway, I love you guys. Subscribe to see videos every Tuesday and Thursday on this channel, but remember, above all else, stay awesome, possums.